Hey y'all, it's Garth, the Big 615. You're going to hear the newest that country music has to offer. At the same time, you're going to hear the newest that the country classics have to offer. I want to hear the new single from George Strait, and I want to hear it right beside the new single from Luke Combs. That's the thing we call the Big 615.
Download the free TuneIn app from the App Store. That's TuneIn. Or ask your device to play the Big 615 on TuneIn.
Hey y'all, it's Garth. I love the country music family. I love the country music family of artists and the country music family of songs. Some of the greatest artists to ever grace music are under the flag of country music. And some of the greatest songs in music history are under the flag of country music. The Big 615, you're going to hear the newest that country music has to offer. At the same time, you're going to hear the newest that the country classics have to offer. I want to hear the new single from George Strait, and I want to hear it right beside the new single from Luke Combs. And I think the country music family is one of those families that is very inclusive and wants both the established artists and the new artists to be side by side in this thing we call country music.
Download the TuneIn app from the App Store. That's TuneIn. And by the way, yes, it's free. You can also ask your device to play the Big 615 on TuneIn.
Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Well. Good evening. Fade to Black. Today is Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. Yeah. Let's bring back some old school stuff. Fade to Black. All right. Tonight, Rick Doty is with us, and there is a lot going on right now. There's a lot going on. And I just thought, who better than Rick Doty? He's got his finger on the situation. I know he's up on all of the points, and he's got opinions and insights on everything that goes on with our community and contact and disclosure and UFOs and ET. And tonight's going to be about alien craft and bodies on ice and a lot more. To set this up a little bit, two things happened in the last 24 hours with a couple of senators. And I'm talking about, of course, Rubio and Gillibrand. Rubio of Florida, Gillibrand out of New York. And Rubio yesterday made some statements in an interview on one of the networks. It might have been, I don't know the names of it. I think it was News Nation. And anyway, so Rubio said, hey, people with very high security clearances have been talking to me, and why would somebody with those kinds of clearances make something up? I'm not saying they're telling the truth, but it's very interesting, and we have to have hearings. And so there was that. He said much more, right? But that was that. And then Gillibrand is calling for hearings and specifically pointing out David Grush and recovered alien craft, and has got a little amnesty program going on. If you've got a flying saucer, you've got 6 months to cough up the goods. So there's that. And of course, we have David Grush. So all of this and much more has been going on. So tonight we'll talk to Rick about all of that. He served in the active United States Air Force, Air National Guard, and the United States Air Force Reserve. He worked for U.S. intelligence with the United States Air Force as an officer of special investigation and the Defense Intelligence Agency. He retired from government service under the combined federal retirement system. He also worked for Hal Puthoff at the Institute for Advanced Studies and has been associated with 6 UFO documentaries, 2 full-length movies. I think he just shot another TV series last week here in L.A., and he's also worked with Gaia on over 100 episodes over there. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black Rick Doty, retired, allegedly.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, good evening, Rick. How you doing, man?
Great. I'm doing great, Jimmy.
I was watching the chat. There's so much to talk about tonight, but I was watching the chat, and nobody heats up a room like Rick Doty.
That's true.
Do you remember the first time that we met virtually? You called into my show and caught me by surprise one night. And you remember how pissed off I was? You remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
I was not happy. That. I was not happy with Rick Doty calling into my show. And I threw a lot of stuff at you, and that night, normally a call lasts for 2 or 3 minutes. I think you were on the air with us for like an hour, right? Something like that.
Yes.
And that was many, many years ago. So I may be a little foggy on some of these facts, but those questions that I threw at you, and I remember my phone blowing up the next day. The people that you know who called me, right? And the phone just didn't stop. So anyway, okay. That's what's going on in the chat right now, right? Are you ever going to be able to figure out how to deal with Paul Benowitz and Linda Moulton Howe and some of these other things that have clouded your past? It's always going to be there. It's part of your life, but is it ever going to be settled and go away?
No, I think that'll always stick with me. The Paul Benowitz case was something that I was told to do. I was given that assignment, and I didn't know Paul before that. And I did exactly what I was told by the government and by my supervisors. I ran an operation that was successful as far as the government went. We did what our operations plan dictated we needed to do. Unfortunately, it didn't quite end up right for Paul. And if I had to do it all over again, there would have been a lot of changes. But the operations plan comes down from headquarters, and I have to operate under that plan. And so I couldn't do what I wanted to do, although I did make some changes to the operations plan when we got further into the operation. But I know it was harmful to Paul, and there are a lot of people blame me for that, but I was doing my job. And a lot of things that people claimed I did, I didn't do. I mean, I never drugged Paul. We never broke into his house and planted things in his house. The only thing I had to do, because Paul was already a believer in the subject of UFOs and ETs, is just agree with him. When he said to me, I think this is what I'm seeing is our ETs or alien crafts, I would say, you know what, Paul? I think you're right. and he went along with it. So there's a lot of misconceptions. I've made a number of presentations at UFO conventions about Paul. I think you were at one of them. You were the MC at one of them, and on Gaia, you worked there too at Gaia, and I thought I put everything to rest, but there's people out there, no matter what I say or how I say it, they're going to still blame me for something. And the same thing with the Linda Howell case. I fully admitted I did show her a document. I was told to show her. I didn't even know who she was. I got a document down from Armed Forces Courier that was top secret, and they were told me to bring Linda in, show her this document, and try to recruit her into as one of our sources of information, because she had access to information coming from the Pentagon, and we needed to know who that was. And so I did exactly what I was told to do. I made contact with Linda, brought her in. She read the document. She was filmed. There was a two-way mirror right behind her, and that's it. And then I maintained contact with Linda for a number of years. I mean, we were friends for a while, and then, of course, when everything broke, she considered me an enemy. But I think we mended fences since then.
And kind of moving on from all of this, there's no reason to address. You and I have done this both privately and publicly. I never had a chance to talk to Paul, but I did talk to Linda immediately after you had called in to the show that night, and I heard her side of the story. And then later, I just want the audience, this is for transparency, I want everybody to understand. Later, Rick and I talked on the phone at length privately, and I said, I just want to hear from you exactly what went down that day with Linda. And I got to say, I heard from Linda, I heard from Rick. It's the same story. It's nearly word for word. So I just want everybody to understand that, and I've discussed it with Linda on this show too as well. And if people want to go back historically and listen to your comments about it, and then listen to hers, they can see that everything lines up pretty consistently there. But that being said, there was another comment. I'd have to scroll back and find it. I would like to pin it up here so you can read it. Jessica says she wanted me to ask you, what's a disinformation agent always a disinformation agent, or is that untrue? And is why should we believe anything that you would have to say today? And it's a great, that is a great question, by the way. I wish I could say that was mine.
I get that question 1,000 times in emails over the years, and at conventions or at other speaking engagements. Well, first of all, I no longer work for U.S. intelligence. The adage that once in intelligence, always in intelligence isn't true. I have contacts within the intelligence community. I'm a member of the Retired Intelligence Officers Association. So there's a lot of retired intelligence officers who are my friends. And but I have no reason to conduct disinformation now. And another thing I always tell people, you won't find the word disinformation in any government manual. It's the word is deception operations. And what we use is disinformation for the deception operations. Well, I'm not running any operations anymore. I'm not paid by the government in any way except for my pension. And I don't have any reason to perform any kind of disinformation against anyone. I'm trying to get the information out. The information I knew I had access to during my time in from 2002 when my NDA expired. I'm trying to get that out. People don't want to listen to me. That's their business. they're going to be shortchanged because I'm telling the truth. Everything I say, everything I do regarding this disclosure, my efforts to disclose things, and my group, which is the members of the Retired Intelligence Officer Association, is for a purpose, and that's the purpose is full disclosure. Now, will we get full disclosure? I probably not. But to answer your question, yeah, I still get that, but I've never was involved in any kind of disinformation program since I retired from government service in the late 80s.
You, man, I'm looking at, man, we're going to run out of time tonight. Okay, you know what? I was going to ask you, one of the things that ended up happening when you called in the show that night, you had said, and man, this spread like wildfire. You had said that there were two top presenters on the conference circuit that were agents or informants or employees or hey, you use your own definition, right? And oh man, my phone. Who do you think it is? Who is Rick talking about? Do you still feel that way today?
Oh yeah, I know for a fact. Both of them are alive and well within the UFO community, and you're talking about people who are.
Yeah, don't name names on this show.
I'm not going to name anybody. I won't
good,
name them,
good.
But they're harmful. They spread the most lies and harm within the UFO community. These two people, there probably are more, but I know of these two people that do this. They create havoc within the UFO community, and they do it quietly, and they do it professionally because they were former intelligence officers. They ran excellent operations, and they're using those techniques today against the UFO community.
Very interesting. I mean, it makes everybody paranoid, but I think I think that's a good thing. Using discernment and looking around. Okay, so let's get down to let's get a little scrappy here. David Grush, a couple of weeks ago. It's only been 2 weeks. It seems like. Has it been 3? Has it been 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's been a little over 3 weeks.
Okay, so 3 weeks. Comes out, does an interview with Ross Coulthart, and of course, Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal write and publish their article on the debrief. And David Grush is now out in the open saying, and now we can deduce two things. It's a lot of stuff that he has said, and we'll get into some more of that. But basically 2 points. We've got flying saucers, and we've got little green men on ice. Okay, in a nutshell, that's what he has said, and has given this information over to the IG and to members of Congress. So, did you know David Grush before? Had you heard his name in circles? There are some that are saying yes to this. Of course, the UAP task force, but in reference to anything else, were you surprised about him coming forward?
No, I knew he was coming forward. First of all, there are independent groups, private groups. Lou Elizondo had one group, and I was in another group, and we called ourselves the Advanced Working Group. We've been trying to push disclosure for a long time, and we brought forth a number of people, whistleblowers, and presented them to Congress, primarily the Senate. We're working on the Senate, Senator Rubio's side. There's other groups working on the House side, but we're on the Senate side. And we brought people to them to be interviewed, to be screened, to be vetted, and they were. And David was, he's the real thing. There's nothing hidden about David. You can prove who he is. You can prove his credentials. Now, of course, people are saying he's reporting what others told him, but others told him this in a classified setting. So David's relating factual information. So I knew about David in January of this year.
Now, what is the difference? And I think everybody has their own ideas about this, and they think that they're right, and most are. But what is the difference between firsthand and secondhand information? And before you answer, is looking at a classified official document, right? Stamped, classified, top secret, right? And you're reading that document. Is that firsthand? Right? Okay.
Yes.
That you would consider that firsthand information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So okay. Continue. So what's the difference between firsthand and secondhand information?
Well, if you're relating to inside the government, there's some difference between if somebody, my partner in the office, say for instance, I worked at Area 51. I worked at the OSI office out at Groom Lake or Area 51, and there's 4 other agents in the office with me and a supervisor. I have access to certain information because I had a need to know that. The guy across the hall from me had access to certain information because he had a need to know that. He comes over to my cubicle and says, "Hey, Rick, I need your help on this particular operation. You don't have access to it, but I'm going to give you a need to know, so I'm going to tell you about it." So that's secondhand information, all right? He's telling me secondhand information. That's what we call a A1 or perfect information. That's credible. It's coming from somebody that knows. It's coming from a document that he had access to, but I didn't have access to. So that's the difference between first and secondhand. Now, if I read a document and it had a number of really highly classified stuff in there that I had to do, that's firsthand information, okay? I'm reading this, I'm getting the information, and now I have to create an operations plan or whatever my task was. But that's the difference within the government. And outside the government, if for instance, the Las Vegas incident happened a few weeks ago, somebody sees something, and that person then a day later tells another person what they saw. Well, I can guarantee you in that 24-hour period, what that first person saw was exaggerated information that the second person got. So that's the difference in between a government and a private community. So I hope that answers your question.
Now, then, what is the classification? So that's firsthand and secondhand. But what's the classification of somebody that would have worked on a craft, or was in a hangar with a craft and looked at the craft? How would you classify them if they came forward as a whistleblower?
Well, they would have number one, they would have top secret clearance, access to top secret clearance based on an expanded background investigation conducted by the government. They would the information that they had would be under a special access program.
Well, but I'm saying, are they an eyewitness? How are they classified? They don't have firsthand information. They're now looking or working on the program. So how would they be classified? What would their classification be? How would they be introduced?
Well, as an eyewitness to something they saw.
Okay.
And there were categories when we met with the senators or Senate staff, mostly the Senate staffers. They gave us a certain category of people they wanted, people that actually had hands on something, that actually picked something up and looked at it, or was in a hangar or some area and saw something and had knowledge, or somebody told them that that was an extraterrestrial craft and not a conventional craft or a reverse engineered craft.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted, and there was roughly 20, don't hold me to that, maybe there were more or less of categories of things that they wanted people to have had access to. And if they managed to have all those categories checked, then they wanted to talk to them. Now, as you can imagine, there wouldn't be that many that would fit every single category. So when we went back to them and said, we can't find everyone, or we can't find people that had every one of these categories checked. And they said, okay, let's narrow it down. People that had access and hands-on something, or had personal one-on-one, or not one-on-one, but personal contact with an extraterrestrial being. And so, and we did. We found some, and we presented them, and they are being categorized, whether they are whistleblowers or not. Now, there's exceptions to the Whistleblower Act, of course. People that they can't disclose any information that would jeopardize national security. They can't disclose sources or methods, but anything else is free play. And some of these people that you're going to hear about soon, I can guarantee you that there's other whistleblowers are just waiting behind that door to open it up and come out and verify what David said, and verify what a lot of other people have been saying for years, including myself and many of the other people.
Now, we also have the situation where Grush, and these numbers have been thrown around, but Grush isn't talking about little fragments of material, right? He's saying intact craft, right? And I think he even mentioned that a couple of them were like abandoned, right? They found the craft, but there were no alien, no pilots. Maybe they got picked up by Uber and the craft broke down. I don't know, but that was pretty interesting. I had never heard anything like that before either. Here's my question: somebody has the craft, so are they with corporations or are they within the Department of Defense?
Excuse me. Well, I can tell you, without jeopardizing national security, that the best way to hide extraterrestrial material, including crafts, is with contractors. And so there are a number of contractors involved in analyzing and reverse engineering ET, not just their flying crafts, but their technology. And so that's where some of the stuff is. I knew about this because it's been going on since the 80s when I worked out at Area 51 or Groom Lake. I mean, there were so many different contractors out there, Lockheed and Boeing and Grumman and just a number of them that were working on just this, reverse engineering. Now, I never had access to that information, so I didn't work where Lazar worked. I knew where it was, but I never went down there, so I don't know about that information. I can't say that this particular craft was reverse engineered, I just was never cleared for that. But I was cleared for the counterintelligence part of it, or protecting it from the public, and so I knew a little bit about it, but I wasn't fully briefed into it. So to answer your question, to hide a craft, you would put it in proprietary custody of a private contractor. Now, the contractor was still contracted through DARPA, and they were still under contract, and they couldn't disclose anything. But one of the tricky things about FOIA is that private contractors don't have to submit to FOIA. So the government can honestly hide something through another contractor. And then something else that I read an article about a few days ago is that to compound this, some of our high technologies were left the United States and was in another country under a contractor from another country. So that would really place it hard for the American people, the public, to find out.
We still don't. I mean, there are. Okay. I'm sure you're referring to the letter that was the Canadian letter that was allegedly written about reverse engineering craft and the Five Eyes and New Zealand and Australia, United Kingdom, Canada, United States. We don't know. I mean, look, if I forget the official that I'm saying allegedly because I don't know, wrote the letter. We haven't had any comments confirming that this is a genuine letter or if it's just a hoax document. We don't know that yet, but it wouldn't surprise me. Because this is an international issue. This isn't a United States issue.
Right.
And yeah, and you're right about that. If you really want to, keep it on the down under, right? Send that stuff to Pine Gap,
Exactly. Yeah, send it to Pine Gap.
Yeah, get it out of here. Now, what about the next component? This is just an overarching thing, and we'll go deeper later. He's talking about bodies. And he specifically said some of these craft need pilots. You would think, right? Well, we have those too. And now he didn't mention anything about living, right? So I'm assuming they were on ice or have died if they were alive. But these are just assumptions that I'm making. What do you know about that? And is this something that, Congress, obviously, the Senate side, the House side, they don't know anything about this stuff. And we're catching them completely by surprise. And if they find out that we've had ET on ice and our lawmakers didn't know about this, I think it's going to cause some problems.
To say the least. Well, I'll tell you what I know. I had access to, and I've given speeches about this, and I've had episodes on Gaia about it. My briefing into the United States government's program regarding the investigation of extraterrestrials goes back to 1947. In 1979, I was given a briefing along with other intelligence officers on how we obtained certain things from ETs. They told us about the Roswell crash site, which very few people out there get it right. But the debris field, the Roswell debris field, was the antenna off the craft that was found in Corona by the archaeological team. So, and we had one live ET on board, and they named him Iba. And he lived in captivity from 1947 and 1952 when he died. Linda Howell talks a lot about this because Linda actually spoke with the ET handler before he died some years ago. So, and then there was another crash site they found in Horse Mesa, New Mexico, way out west past Socorro in 1949, which is the exact same craft, exact same beings. So those two sites, dead beings in the second site, one live being in the first one. Now the bodies of the Roswell or the Corona crash, they were kept on ice. I'm not sure where. I know Iba one allegedly went to Los Alamos, although there's now indication that he might have went to another location which wasn't Los Alamos. And so, and we know, I knew, and Wendell Stevens, and you know who Wendell is, and I'm sure the hardcore UFO people out there know who Wendell Stevens was. He died some years ago, but he was probably the father of UFO research, and he was at almost every convention. He made so many videos. Well, he was on the first DART team, or Down Aircraft Recovery Team, and he had documents to prove that. And his lecture, he talks about 12 crash sites, and of course, Grush talks about 12, and then some of them we found ETs, and some of them we didn't. The Kingman crash site in 1951, there were live ETs in there, but they died. I guess some, a few hours after they were found. So we had them on ice. Big Springs, Texas crash site in 1951 that Wendell talks about. The craft was there, but no ETs were there. Now, did the ETs get on another craft and fly away, or did they mingle or within the human population? We don't know, but we have that craft. The Ritchie Mining Town, Nevada crash site in 1953. Now, this is a strange incident because the miners came up on this crash site with a flying saucer. They call it a flying saucer. They didn't know what it was. They didn't think anything about it being extraterrestrial, but there wasn't anything in it because they couldn't get inside the craft. It took almost 7 weeks for the military to get out there to look at what they had. And when the military got out there, they realized this isn't from here. So they took it someplace, and I don't know where. This is in 53, so Area 51 didn't really exist in 53.
No.
So they took it somewhere, probably a base, some base somewhere. Some people say Edwards Air Force Base, which wasn't Edwards back then, but anyways, they took it someplace. They finally got it open, and they found it to be empty. So there's no aliens in that. And there's others. The McCoy mining site in 1956. McCoy mining site in Nevada, 1956. Crash with ETs aboard. They're all dead. And apparently that craft crashed probably years before. It's a remote area of Nevada. Some miners found this craft. Military got it, looked inside. All the ETs were decayed. So those are just some.
There's a couple of other cases. Let me ask you about two others.
Okay.
And the Kingman case still fascinates me, by the way. And I've gone back to some of my reference books, reading more and more about that. What's weird about the Kingman case is that we have a certain amount of information, and then it just stops. I mean, but there's nothing that follows up Kingman. We have a lot of preliminary data and things, but it's weird how it just stops. But anyway, 1950 in Above Top Secret, Timothy Good talks about Cave Creek, Arizona, which is it's a couple of cross streets in northern Scottsdale today. Back then, it would have been open desert. 1958, 1959. Crash retrieval there. The Air Force came in, flatbed truck, you know the story. And then the crash site itself, immediately after that, was turned into a parking lot, which is still there today. Do you know anything about the Cave Creek crash retrieval?
No, only what you just said. Wendell Stevens talked about that. He wasn't on that recovery. It was the Air Force came in like the middle of the evening to retrieve something, which the Air Force said was an experimental aircraft launch from Yuma, The Air Force actually, and that case is in Blue Book, and but it doesn't say anything other than it was a craft. It was a known craft from Yuma. It was launched and it crashed, and they recovered it, which nobody believed because the two of the people who are, of course, dead now, they spoke about the craft. I'm sure you know about their what they claimed they saw and why they covered it up so quick. So that's all I know. I know probably just as much, maybe a little bit more about that. Crash site than you do.
Okay, then there was in modern a modern case is Baker, California, where this dark gray it has been described as a saucer came in low and slow over Baker and crashed next to the river that's there, and then the recovery teams, and this happened, I want to say in the mid-'90s. The town, which there's a marine distribution center, not that far from their logistics base. Edwards and, of course, Skunk Works are about 50 miles in the other direction. Area 51 is about 300 miles away. But there's a lot of military that's right there. And they came into town, again, right? Wash and rinse, repeat, same story. Flatbeds, helicopters came in, a big crane. They got this craft on the back of a flatbed. The town was flooded with black SUVs and high security, but they got the craft out the same day under the cover of darkness by the time they got it loaded up. Do you know anything about that crash retrieval?
I think that was an actual ET craft. There's one person who approached us at a UFO convention at sometime, maybe 3 or 4 years after that. I think that crash happened in 1995. And he came to us, myself and Clifford Stone. We were sitting at a table. He came up to us and he wanted to talk to us. And actually, he knew Robert Dean, and he was looking for Robert Dean. That's his. He came to ask me about Robert Dean. I said, well, Robert Dean's around here someplace. I don't know where he's at. Anyways, he recognized me, and he said, I saw you speak a few days ago. And I said, yeah. He said, can I talk to you? And Clifford, I said, well, Clifford's my good friend. He was former military. So we sat in the back of one of the tables and drinking coffee, and he told us about that. He said that was a craft that they tracked on radar for 48 hours. It was just flying all over the place. And there were jets that were launched from, I don't know which Air Force base, but one of the Air Force bases close by. I think he said Norton. But anyways, there were two jets launched, but they couldn't catch up to it. And eventually the craft came within the atmosphere close. I mean, it was originally at 80,000, 50,000. It got down to about 20 or 30,000. And I'm paraphrasing him because he went on for hours talking about it. And one of the jets managed to fire a missile at it. I guess it was over the ocean. And although the missile never hit it, somehow the craft crashed near the river, I think in the riverbed. And so the Air Force was already prepared to recover it.
Yeah. He told me, I don't know if it was the same. The person that I talked to worked at the radio station there. And I think he said that he was on the air. That's beside the point. I don't want to get sidetracked. He said that it flew over the town, that like everybody saw it, and it was not traveling fast at that point and crashed. But he said, Jimmy, it was minutes, and the town was just swarmed with military.
Yeah.
Minutes.
Yeah. The guy that I spoke to was on the recovery team. He was a member of a special team that escorted nuclear weapons from different bases to different bases. He worked for the Department of Energy. And although that wasn't their primary mission to go after this, but that was a mission that they would do because they would transport any type of classified material. So if it was a UFO, they could transport it. Anyways, he was a member of the transport security team, I think they call it. And that's the story he told us. Now, I didn't know anything other than what he told me. I heard about it and I've read about it later, but that's what he told us.
Now, a lot of this lines up with the Wilson Davis document, and that's another piece of this puzzle, right? We just keep stacking stuff up. But in there, where Thomas Wilson retired, Rear Admiral Thomas Wilson, he says, this aerospace corporation, right? He's, I think, to paraphrase him, one of the leading aerospace. So I think most of it's just deduce, Skunk Works out of that immediately. That's where I go. But he says that the three representatives of the company, one of them was a security guy, another guy was an attorney, and the other guy, engineer, whatever, right, executive, told him that they had a craft and they think it can fly. They just haven't figured it out yet. So is that what when David Grush says that he's given documents that name names, right? Would you suspect that Lockheed Skunk Works, which is right up the street here, is housing a craft?
I think I don't know that they're housing it, but there are places that they can house them out at Groom Lake, and I think that they built in the beginning of 2000 for 11 years. There were a number of contractors, and George Knapp tells the story. I don't want to take anything away from George Knapp, but there were contractors that worked out there, and one of the workers admits that they built hundreds of thousands of square footage under Groom Lake. So if that's the case, and I understand now there's a highway going from Area 51 down to Papoose or S2, that's a place they could hide it. I think the technology, the paperwork, the plans and programming of any kind of reverse engineering is being done at Skunkwork at their classified facilities, which is heavily guarded and very, very secure. And then that technology is taken out to Area 51 and then practically used to try to reverse engineer one of these crafts.
Now, wouldn't Area 51, though, fall under, well, it was originally the CIA, but it's still government and it's still Department of Defense. So that falls, we're talking about Department of Defense as opposed to in the possession of a private corporation, which would be, I would think, harder to chase down. So does that make sense to you, or is there a way around it because they've kept Area 51 secret for so many years?
Oh, yeah, there's a way around it. Area 51 is actually called Detachment 3 Air Flight Test Center, which is out of Edwards. And it's under the command of the Air Force Operational Testing Evaluation Center, which is out of Kirtland Air Force Base. Anyways, that's the base that's more secure. That's the base that contractors can work out of. And when I was out there, when I worked out there in 83, in 84, there were literally probably 20 different contractors out there working. Lockheed and Grumman and Boeing and most of the aerospace contractors, Los Alamos, Lawrence Livermore, Sandia Laboratories, all had offices out there. And although the contractors would be working on these, they would be under the control of DARPA or the Air Force Technical Research Laboratory, or the people under the Air Force Scientific Research people. So they would be overseen, but the contractors would be the one trying to figure out what the craft was and how it would be reverse engineered. But again, I never actually worked on that part of it, so there could be more to it than what I'm saying. But that's basically what I knew about it.
The announcement we had two different statements yesterday from two different senators, both with extreme interest in this subject. I could go back and actually read some of it. Let me pull it up here. But the statements themselves, when they talk about the hearings, that they want these to be public, and I found that was pretty interesting, and that they would like for the press to be there with cameras. If we have a hearing like this, crash retrievals, alien bodies on ice, do you think that this would actually be, for the first time, a public hearing with testimony?
I don't think that will ever happen. I think everything pertaining to what we have and what we've done would be in camera in a special session. In the last hearing we had just a few days ago, there was a I think a 3.5 hour in-camera session where the information that couldn't be presented to the public was presented to these representatives. But as I understand from one staff member, all it pertains to is sources and methods, and how we, the United States government, would track or have tracked these things, and how we have what sources we used and what agencies. Because there's some agencies within NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, that are still classified. NRO isn't, but there's branches within the NRO that is classified, and their missions are classified. So we don't really know what they do, although we can surmise that it has something to do with deep space probes and looking at objects coming in from deep space. That's what we think, and what some of the experts in my group who've worked for NRO thinks, that NSA, National Security Agency, and NRO, those classified branches, and that's their mission.
Now, if we had an in-camera, classified briefing 2 days ago, why keep the alien part of this classified? I understand if it's Russian tech or if it's Chinese tech, and they don't want to give away, how we're filming these or how we're collecting the data on foreign adversaries. I get it, but if we're talking about ET now and flying saucers, why have that classified?
Well, that's a good question. We know, and we've known for a long time, that the Soviet Union or Russia had their own Roswell. They had their own recoveries, and they've had ETs. We know China has. We know South Africa, Brazil, some other countries, East Germany. So that's not a big secret. One of the things that I learned when I was called to Washington to give a deposition, which I did twice in January 2022 and September of 2022. One of the things that
a deposition to whom?
One was to the Department of Defense, IG, DOD IG.
DOD IG called you to Washington and deposed you?
And deposed me.
About what?
About what I did in the past.
Why?
Good question. They want to know what I knew. And I told them what I knew, although they told me that I couldn't disclose any classified information. I said, well, there's no sense of me being here if I can't disclose it. I mean, most of what I did was classified. I don't know if it's still classified, but they had number one, we didn't meet. We met clandestinely. They called me, and we met in another area. We didn't meet in Washington. We didn't meet at the Pentagon. We met in Roslyn, Virginia, and at a place that was somewhat secretive. They picked me up and they took me to two different locations before they took me there. I don't know why they did all this. It was kind of a cloak and dagger thing, something I would have done to somebody if I was trying to hide them. Anyways, they had one of my reports, and they said, we'd like to go over this report with you. You authored this report in 1982. This is your report. Your name on it came from the Air Force Office of Special Investigation through DIA, and we want to talk about it. I said, okay, fine.
What was the report about?
Well, a report about an incident I investigated in New Mexico.
Aliens, UFOs?
Yeah, it was a UFO. It was an ET contact, not by me, but by a Air Force person who actually had contact with an ET.
Okay.
But this is the kicker. When they put the report, and it was in a case, they put it in front of me, and they said, okay, open it, and opened it. It was heavily redacted. And I looked at the case, and it took me some, I paged through it, and it was about, 30, I don't know exactly how many pages. I looked through it, and I said, yeah, that's my signature. That's my OSI number. Yeah, that's my report. He said, well, can you tell us what this was about? And I said, wait a minute. You guys are the DOD IG, and you can't get an unredacted report? And he says, no, we can't. They're not cooperating with us. Now, I stopped and I thought to myself, wait a minute. Am I in a twilight zone or what? I said, that doesn't make any sense to me. You guys, why can't you just go and ask them for a cleared report? They won't give it to us. He said, right now, there's not a lot of intelligence agencies that are cooperating with this disclosure, and especially the Air Force, Space Force. And I said, well, I can try to go. It was 40 years ago. I don't remember everything in this report, but I'll try. But I said, you told me earlier that I can't discuss classified information. He said, yeah, we don't want you to disclose anything classified. I said, well, I can't talk about this report because as I look at it, it's still classified. There's a top secret designation on the top, and on the bottom, there's a downgrading instructions here. And the code word is up on top. I can't talk about it then because I don't know which paragraph that is not classified. Because on a document, on a report like that, each paragraph can be classified. It can be a TS/ORCON or whatever code word. And then some will say U, meaning unclassified. And so as I looked at the report, I went over all the unclassified portions. I said, well, this is unclassified. This is unclassified. I'll talk about that. But I could never give him the real nature of the report. And so then they said, well, can we just get this all on record of what you know and what you were briefed into? So I did that. It lasted about an hour and a half. And they said, okay, thank you. And they took me back to a hotel they had me in Arlington, Virginia. And the next morning I flew out. When I got back to New Mexico, I had to go on assignment. I went up to Boulder. I was up there for 4 days, but they called me once up there, and one of the DOD people called me and asked me some questions, and I answered them. And they said, well, can you come back in September? I said, well, it depends on what my schedule is, but if not scheduled, I'll come back. So I went back in September. Although this time, entirely different people. They had DOD ID cards, but they were different people. They had not one of them were the same people that interviewed me in January. Well, they asked me a lot of different questions about the Paul Benowitz case and the classification of the Paul Benowitz case and the Orion case, which is another case similar to Paul Benowitz. There was another person that got into. He was a Air Force person, but he got involved in something that he shouldn't have, and we did an investigation on him. And in another case we did out at Area 51, I wasn't the case agent out there. The case agent out there had since died. He died some years ago. But I was a secondary agent, and we did it out there, and it involved an Air Force pilot, an F-117 test pilot. And we were testing the F-117s back in the early 80s. And this guy had got caught in a brothel at Beatty, Nevada, with a prostitute. And he told her some things that he shouldn't told her. And she told her husband, and it was nice because we probably owned every one of the prostitutes around the base. We set up a counterintelligence network, and we paid these ladies to report back to us if any Air Force people, spoke too much about what they did. Anyways, that was that investigation. And I said, yeah, I can speak about all that because as far as I know, all that's unclassified, except for there's portions of the Paul Benowitz reports that's still classified. That's all he want. All they wanted was three of them. That's all they wanted to know. And one of the things, really important thing that this one DOD inspector said to me, he said, you know what? That Roswell incident is a given to us. We already proved that happened. I said, oh, well, you need to tell the public that. He said, well, we'll start. When we ever start disclosure, that's going to be the number one thing that we're going to start with. But it's going to really piss off a lot of people. I said, I already know that. All these people have written books about Roswell is totally wrong. They're going to be upset. He said, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people upset. And there's going to be a lot of people saying, no, it didn't happen that way. The government's not telling us the right thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
But okay, hold on for a second. I'm gonna circle back. Okay, but you said that you got taught in a class setting. You were shown film on Roswell.
Yes.
Okay, so for the last time, forget about those three yahoos in Washington flying you out there. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about you.
Okay.
Roswell, alien craft not of this earth crashed or was shot down. Is that Roswell, or was it terrestrial and nothing else?
It was extraterrestrial beings.
Okay, well that's it then. So why would people be upset? I think that's the general consensus. No.
I don't mean that they're going to be upset just for the mere fact that a craft crashed at Roswell. It's going to be how they craft and the story behind it. That all these UFO researchers have written hundreds and hundreds of books about the Roswell crash and how it happened. They're going to be upset because the government's going to come out and say, you know what? It didn't happen the way you claimed it did. Here's how it happened.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. That's from our community. That's not going to be the rest of the world. I think the rest of the world is just going to go. Universe is a big place. There's a lot of life out there. Okay. Let's take our break. We've got a lot more to cover tonight. Rick Doty is with us. Rick, you stay right there. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023 as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a Human Origins Science and Technology Expo, live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. With live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long. Featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. Also introducing our Disclosure Fest VR Starship area with dozens of rides. You've got to check it out. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org. The secret is out. LifeWave's X39 is the reason why I have got my vision back. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you need to go straight to healingworksnow.com. That's healingworksnow.com. Works with an X. All of the information that you need is on that portal. Find out why I look great. I feel great. I'm thinking clearly. I sleep. I dream. Life is good. All of it. You've got to check out LifeWave's X39 and all of their other products. It's all simple to do. Go to healingworksnow.com. That's healingworksnow.com. Works with an X.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com, and the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's going to be a night to remember. You don't want to forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I want to see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Rick Doty is with us. And Rick, right before the break, we were talking about Roswell. What exactly happened at Roswell?
Okay, this is what I was briefed on. I was briefed by a Air Force colonel. There were others in the room. There were 20 or so in the room, and a senior enlisted person from the Air Force. We were given a folder with what happened in Roswell, and we were then shown a film which showed the recovery at Roswell. But what happened? There were two extraterrestrial crafts flying around New Mexico in late June, early July of 1947. These two crafts were, I guess, just investigating or exploring our planet, and just, I don't know how they got to New Mexico. But anyways, during that time period, there was a very vicious electrical storm, lightning, vicious lightning in New Mexico. And if anybody's ever lived here in New Mexico, where I live, you can understand that we have some really bad lightning. I mean, horrible lightning storms. And the government, at least this is what we were told, the government figures that these two crafts flying were struck or encountered lightning and upset their navigation system. One crashed, and the other one flew some distance west and eventually crashed in Horse Mesa, but they didn't find that for a couple years later. One of both of these crafts had an extension on the back of it, which we believed was their antenna or some other avionics. That broke off, landed in the debris field where Mark Brazel found it. The craft itself crashed near Corona, near a ranch near Corona. And during that time period, there was an archaeological team from Albuquerque, New Mexico, from the university out there. And they're the ones that actually found that craft and found that live ET. They notified the sheriff of the county, their Lincoln County, and eventually the Mexico State police officer arrived, and a recovery team from both Roswell Air Base and Kirtland Field came out and recovered the craft. And that's the actual story that was in the official U.S. government document and the film. So any other stories isn't what the government is saying. And I'm confident that when the disclosure comes out and they start with this is exactly what they're going to tell the public.
Okay. The part about this where I was told the other night on the air by one of the guests that we actually shot down those craft, that it wasn't a lightning storm. There's that. And then the second part to this is you're saying that there is, I've always assumed this, but you're saying that the government has film of Roswell in their possession. I mean, you have seen it yourself. What was in this film? Was it the Corona crash site? What was in the film? What did you see?
The film starts with an Army, back then, of course, Army Air Force. It was an Army person given a quick preamble to what we were about to see, a recovery of an extraterrestrial flying craft. That's what he referred to it as in New Mexico. And they didn't mention Roswell or Corona, but sometime during that they did. But it showed a tent, a large tent. What in the military we would refer to as a GP large and several GP mediums, smaller tents. And the flaps were open, and there were military personnel moving in and out of the tents. The camera comes into the tent, and there's things on the table. One of them was looks like handprints. Maybe their navigation, how they navigated, but their hands are in some kind of panel. And then there were little gadgets on the table. And then the camera went through out to where this craft was, and it's embedded in the soil. It landed like in a mound or something. And they showed the dead ETs, but they were in body bags. They showed the body bags. They showed partially inside the craft, and then they swung back a larger angle of the outside of the craft. At some point, they filmed. Somehow it might have been later. They had moved the bodies inside the tent, and they had the body bags opened, and the cameraman from a corner angle, filmed in and showing the bodies, the 5 bodies on an examination table or something like that.
5 bodies.
And then there were 5, yeah. There would be 5. Well, 4 bodies and the live ET. It didn't show the live ET. This film didn't show it. But they referred to it later as one survived. They said one alien survivor. And they said that later in the film. Then the narrator talked about who had been there, who was reporting this, and then they panned away. And now I don't know if this was the same day or days later. You can't really tell on these old films. But President Truman, they showed President Truman had apparently was there at some point. I don't know, was that same day or some days later. And then many different Army brass. Some of them you could see their face. Some of them they didn't. I don't know if they purposely filmed below their shoulders or what, but some of them you couldn't see their face. But you could see a lot of military personnel who anybody in the military would recognize as being officers, flag officers. The film lasted about 30, some minutes.
Wow.
And that's it.
Okay. Well, that's then, pretty long.
And afterwards, the colonel answered some questions, but not all. And then we talked about some other crash sites, or crash retrievals. The Kingman, we talked about that, talked about others, and not in great details, just mentioning that there were other crash sites, not just Roswell. But the government did say in this film that Roswell was the first time that we encountered extraterrestrials. So
now, David
I
Grush,
understand now.
David Grush, we're on limited time, so let me suck some more stuff out of you really quick. Grush says 1933, we went over to Italy and grabbed something.
They never mentioned that in this film. So
okay,
I was just about to say, people are going to talk about some other. And in 1917, there's some people out there. Wendell Stevens talks about the 1917 thing that crashed in the trenches of someplace in France, and it was recovered, and they eventually put on a ship. And I don't know anything about that, and they never mentioned that in this film. I'm just telling you what.
We have Cape Girardeau too as well, which was a couple of years before Roswell.
45.
Okay. I want to go back to this 1982 incident that you were deposed about. You said that the case was about a U.S. Air Force service person that had contact with an alien, not a craft, but an ET.
Yes, mm-hmm. And he took pictures. He had contact over a period of 6 days. He was driving in a remote area of New Mexico on a fishing trip with another man. And they went to fish, and it's a very remote area that he was in. And they were fishing, and they were actually camping, and then they're going to fish. So on the first day, they got there late at night or late in the afternoon, set up tent and everything. They walked around, acclimating themselves to the area, and they saw a light in the sky, which they didn't really think of. Now, this captain, Air Force captain, was a pilot. He was an Air Force pilot. He flew C-130, which actually AC-130s, which were gunships.
The gunship. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, and he was stationed at Kirtland. And the other person was a civilian. Nothing to do with the military. Never been in the military. He was a neighbor of the captain. Anyways, and that other person was a native of New Mexico. The captain wasn't. And so this other person showed him where to go best fishing and so forth. Anyways, Well, they didn't think anything of that light at night. And the next morning they get up and they go fishing, and they're fly fishing on a creek. So they're walking. One of them is ahead of the other. They get down to a fork. The captain walks across. Water wasn't that deep, and he sees a little cove. And if anyone's a fisher person out there, a fisherman, the coves are the best place to try to get something to bite on. So anyways, he was fishing there, and all of a sudden he sees something on the bank. And he looks and looks, and then he just sees a shadow because it's behind some pine trees. And then the thing comes out, and he's looking at an ET. It startles him. He thinks at first it's somebody dressed in a suit. And so he runs back across the creek. Now his friend is probably 100 yards up the creek, farther up.
But this is an Air Force captain who has made this contact, who is the subject of this report. Okay, continue. So he runs up the creek, the captain.
So the captain runs across the creek, really scared, and he keeps looking over at this thing, and he doesn't know what it is. It's just a creature. It's ugly looking, but it's staring at him, and he thinks, and he starts thinking in his mind, it's friendly. It's not a talk. He says, I don't hear voices. I'm just feeling that this thing isn't going to hurt me. So he puts his fishing pole down, and he watches this thing, and it moves up the creek, actually moves up to the deeper part of this little creek. And the captain realizes he can't walk across that place if that's where this thing wants us to meet. But all of a sudden, this thing moves across on top of the water over to where he's at, and ends up right in front of him. And so the captain is startled. He tries to talk to this thing, and it's not talking. It's making movements with its arms. It has just 4 fingers, and that suction on his fingers, and it's making movements like, okay, I want to do this. He can't quite understand what this thing wants. But the first thing when he first sees it comes in his mind is an extraterrestrial. He says, "Oh my God," and he says to this thing, "You're from another planet. What planet are you from?" And start asking him other questions, but obviously he doesn't get any response to it. But the thing backs up right to the edge of the water, and he then points down to where this civilian is. And he moves his hands like this, the creature does. And the captain doesn't understand what he's talking about. But then he thinks, well, maybe he wants me to get farther away from that guy. So they walk into the woods, and they walk quite deep into the woods. And when they get into the woods, the creature shows him something. He produces something. It's like a pamphlet. But it's shiny. He can't really see it. It's just shiny. And all of a sudden, there's things appearing on this, stars and planets, and he was fascinated by this thing. He just looks at it, and then all of a sudden, he starts hearing voices. The voice is saying, "I won't hurt you. I want you to watch this. I want you to look at this." And he did everything that this thing was saying. Well, this lasts for, he thinks, 15 or 20 minutes. He doesn't really, the time period, he didn't really keep track of. But then the thing just leaves. It just turns around and leaves. And he's talking in voice, and so the ET's not, but he's saying, "Will you come back? Will you see me again? Can I see you again?" But then he thinks, "I got to get a picture." And he has his camera, but it's over at all his camping gear over at the tent. So he runs over there and grabs the camera, and he yells to this thing, and it finally turns around, and he starts taking pictures. And he took 20 pictures. It's an AE1 camera, and sometimes some of the old timers know what that is. I know you don't know what it is, Jimmy. It has 35 millimeter film, and you take a picture, and you have to cock it, and so it leaves. So sometime later, his friend comes back, but he doesn't tell the friend this. He just, I'm not going to tell anybody this because nobody's going to believe me. So they spend the next couple of days fishing, and then the fourth day, they were going to leave. They were going to leave that afternoon because it was like a 3-hour drive out. And well, they see the light the night before, or he sees it. So he said, I don't want to leave because I think this thing is coming back. So anyways, they split up and they fish some different places. Sure enough, the creature comes back. He takes a lot of pictures this time. And he has really good dialogue with this thing. And this captain has a little notebook, and he jots everything down. So then he leaves. The thing leaves. He leaves. He goes back. He gets back to the base. He doesn't know what to do with the information. He says that if I go and tell my commander, they're going to think I'm nuts. If I go to my security officer, he's not going to believe me. Who do I go to? I don't know who to go to. And so he confides in this other captain. They go on a mission, a flight mission, flying a training mission down in White Sands. And he tells this co-pilot of his about this. And the co-pilot says, wow, you need to tell somebody. He said, where's the pictures? He says, I got the film I haven't developed yet. I don't know where to take it to develop, because if you take it to a civilian place, they're going to say, holy cow, what is this? So he says, why don't you go to OSI? He said, oh, no, they're going to think I'm nuts. So they'll take my flight status away from me. No. You got pictures to prove it. So he thinks about it. He goes home. And all of a sudden, he goes, and he's married, his wife, and he goes in the bathroom, and he sees, when he walks into the bathroom, he doesn't turn the light on. How you step in and before you turn the light on. And he sees the creature standing in the bathtub, and he turns the light on, and well, it's not there. But he turns it off, and he hears it, and it says it's coming back, but it's coming back to this other location. But he doesn't know the location. He doesn't understand what this creature is saying to him. So, anyways, the long story short, because we don't have a lot of time, he goes to another place, meets with him for another couple of days. So a total of 6 days. On the 7th day, he comes to the OSI office. He says, I need to talk to somebody in counterintelligence. And our security officer that screens everybody coming in says, well, that would be Special Agent Doty. He's one of them. What is it about? He said, well, I need to show him some film. I need to talk to him about something. It's okay. So he calls me, the security officer, say, there's a captain up here that wants to talk to you. And I said, well, what's it about? And he tells me, he's not going to tell me. Anyways, he gets back there. He doesn't tell me the whole story, but he says, is there any way you can develop this film? I said, what's on the film? He says, I'm not sure, but it has to do with extraterrestrials. Of course, that perked my interest right away. And I said, well, what do you mean? Well, did you take this? He said, yeah. I said, is it classified? He said, I don't know. It might be. So I said, yeah, we have a photo lab.
This is the craziest story I ever heard, Rick. Okay,
yeah.
Keep going. Did you get did the film
anyways, I go back, and we have our own photo people, and I say, if we develop this film, he leaves, and I said, well, I'll call you, because I thought I didn't think much of it. And, an hour or two, whatever it was, our airman, he's not an OSI agent. He's just a person that works for us, an administrative person that works in a photo lab. No, I mean, he's not an administrative person. He's a photo person. He comes up and he has an envelope, and it's marked top secret, because he didn't know. He sees his picture. You don't know what. He says, I'm classified. This is the highest I can think of. I said, what the hell's in there? He said, I don't think you should review it in your office, sir. I think we need to go in a secure room to do it. So I went in a secure room. I opened it up, and here's all these pictures. Well, my first impression was it's all staged. Somebody's dressed up in a costume, and, I thought, what the hell is this guy trying to do? But the more I look at the pictures, I realized, why, that's it. Where would he get that costume out there in the middle of nowhere? And then the more I look at the creature and the face and the hands and the mannerisms, I thought, wow. So I called him in and I confronted him, and I kind of did a hostile interrogation on him because I thought it was a joke, or I thought it was somebody played a joke on him. I said, "Who gave you this film?" He said, "Oh, I took it." I said, No, you didn't take it. Who gave it to you?"
Yeah, see,
Said,
somebody LMH'd Rick Doty.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel
And I
good,
said-
does it? It doesn't feel good to have that thought. But how many pictures? Because you said he took about 20 the first time, and then he took more.
Yeah, there were 36, 35. I mean, I think there's 35 in a row or something.
36.
36. Yeah, he took 36 then.
Holy crap. Where are these pictures today?
DIA, I had to send them up. I wish I would have kept some now, but I didn't know what to do with them. We did a major investigation on this, right? Because is this guy joking? Is this guy feeding us deception or disinformation? And so I had to do a major investigation on this guy. It took weeks to do it. He took us out to where, me and some other agents out to where this happened. And I asked, well, where did craft land? Well, he never saw the craft land. He just would see this ball of light, and then the creature would show up. He never saw it land. So he couldn't take us to a location where we could do some measurements and so forth. So that made me curious. And then eventually we had to give him a polygraph examination. And we give polygraph examinations different from the civilian community. It's almost impossible to flunk to beat a polygraph that the government gives you, because a counterintelligence polygraph is very extreme. It's long. You sit down and we have questions, and we tell you answer every one of these questions. Yes, the first time, no, the second time, and truthful the third time. Well, there's nobody going to beat that. So we did that, and we did this over a period of 3 days. We gave him 2 different polygraphs, and he showed no deception at all on these polygraphs.
So yes, no, and the truth. That's pretty. Okay. Here's the thing though. With what David Grush has done, which has opened the door to hearings and further investigation, it's cases like this. And if they just brought you back to D.C. in I think you said 2022, 2021, 22 to talk about this, then this stuff may surface. I want to read you this. This is what here's the quote from Marco Rubio yesterday, or part of it. He says, quote, "There were public figures who we've heard from in the past while others had not spoken publicly on UFOs. Others, meanwhile, still work in the government. I will say I find most of these people at some point, or maybe even currently, have held very high clearances and high positions within our government. So you have to ask yourself, what incentive would so many people with that kind of qualification have to come forward and make something up," end quote. Now, I think that's one of the best points that Marco Rubio can make. And in the case of David Grush, I've been saying this from the first time I read Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal's article.
Well, sure. I mean, that's a good question. Why would you? Well, you're not. You're not going to. Number one, the government's going to investigate you. Unless you're under that Whistleblower Protection Act, you can get in trouble. They want the truth out. We want disclosure out, and you're going to see. And mark my word, I'm saying this on the Jimmy Church's show. You're going to see others come out. You're going to see David's supervisor. You're going to see some other people. You're going to see a Navy admiral. He's going to come out. He's going to come forth, and he's going to relay. He's already done it to Senate staffers. He's going to come out and going to back up everything that David said and add a ton more to it, because he was an admiral in the United States. I believe he was a one. I don't know what. I'm not familiar with Navy ranks. I believe he was a 1-star, equivalent to 1-star admiral, whatever that is.
It's like a
striker,
rear admiral.
Rear. Okay, rear.
I still haven't figured that out. I had friends growing up whose fathers, one friend specifically, his dad was rear admiral of the Southern Fleet, right, in the Pacific. I have no idea what that is.
I should have asked Kevin Day, he's a friend of mine. I should have asked. He would have straightened me out of Navy ranks. But anyways, this guy is a one. He's an admiral. I can say he's an admiral. I think he has the 1-bar thing, so I think he's like equivalent to a brigadier general in the Army and the military and the other branches. But anyways, I've spoke to him. We've sat down. We've had dinner with him, with some members of our group. He's the real thing. And when he comes out, it's going to shock a lot of people.
So then we have this. In the beginning of June this month, House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer announced an investigation into allegations that top secret military program already had has a fully intact UFO in its possession. The investigation will be led by GOP reps Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, and she's a committee member, by the way, and Tim Burchett of Tennessee, who is not a committee member, but he's been very outspoken about all of this. So James Comer has announced this, and the timing of this came out the day after David Grush did his thing, or the day before, I should say. So, and then yesterday, Senator Gillibrand says she's working on scheduling hearings with David Grush, okay? Along with the current or former government officials who seem to corroborate his claims. She went on to say, and this was yesterday, that the hearings will be open to the public if Grush agrees to allow cameras in. Now, this is a Grush decision. Grush is already on camera. So I would assume from Gillibrand's statement that we may have this. This may be like Watergate. This might be like Iran-Contra. This might be like Godfather Part 2.
Yeah, you got that right, Jimmy. It could very well be. I don't know why it would be up to David. I don't know that. I don't know how they're thinking, but I understand what the Congress is upset. There's a lot of members of Congress and and I don't speak to members of Congress. I mean, I have spoken to them, but we deal with staffers, and there's a lot of staffers that tell us that their boss is really upset over why this has been held against the public for so long. How could they hide this? And there was a leak, I guess, of a film showing Lou and Dr. Putoff and some others going into some room and looking at something. I don't know if you saw that.
I've seen it.
Document some pieces and claiming it they were ET things. So we have to understand there's 3 distinct branches of our government. The legislative branch can make the laws. They can try to pass things, but they have to have the president sign it. And I guarantee you right now, the way the bill is written, that if any entity of the United States government has an extraterrestrial item, they have to report it. That's never going to be passed by Congress. And that's never going to, and the president will never sign it because that's the executive branch. And there's too many entities within the executive branch, which is all the intelligence communities and the military and research and development. They're going to say, absolutely not. That's the dumbest thing you could ever do is say, okay, here we got it. So Soviets and the Russians and the North Koreans and the Chinese. And no, that's never going to happen. I mean, that's just we laugh at that way within the intelligence community or within our groups. That's not going to, just because somebody's upset within the legislative branch that they don't know about it doesn't mean that the executive branch is going to go ahead and sign off on a bill that forces Area 51 or Air Force Research and Development or whoever to release everything they have regarding a UFO. That's not going to happen.
You had a couple of years ago, you revealed on this show, you shocked the world and said that you had a printout of the list of personnel at Area 51. And yep. Shelley is paying me $10, Rick. Paying me $10 to ask you this question. I should do this all night long. $10 a question. $10 a question. Ask Jody about the file from Area 51. He said that Art Bell was on that list. I think there's a lot of reasons Art Bell could have been on that list, but where is this list? What? You promised me full disclosure on this. You said you described the printer, the size of the paper, dot matrix, the whole thing. And you swore on your guitar collection. That's what you did.
Over here, you can't see mine.
You said,
my four fenders.
I have four fenders in that corner.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Or in your bathroom, right?
Yeah, in my bathroom. Yeah. So, what's up with this list, and when are we going to see it?
Okay. Here's the problem with the list. We obtained this list from a source that we basically disappeared on us, but we verified a lot because we tried so many different ways to verify the list to be authentic. We couldn't just put this out and say, hey, this is an authentic list because this guy gave it to us. Who gave it to you? Well, we don't know who it is. We don't know who he is, but he gave it to us. Well, the credibility of the list just goes down the drain. So we couldn't do that. So we had to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money to try to verify the list. Okay. And we had to go back, all the way back. We had to do historical check. We had people within our group went back and they had to go through archives, government archives in Washington, D.C., look at different things. We sent, I think, 56 FOIA requests up. We got some back. Some of them we didn't get back. Some said, no, we can't give it to you. And so then we went on the list and got people that we knew was on that list. I was on the list, and went back and some of the other people and say, okay, were you on this? Did you work in Area 51 or Groom Lake during this time period? And they would verify it. And then some of the people that we thought was on the list or thought worked out there that showed up wasn't on the list. We had to verify that maybe they were left off the list for some reason, because if we said that they weren't on the list and they come back with some other documentation. So legally speaking, we had to cover every single base before we could release that. And at the point we're at right now, it's in a legal corner. An attorney and actually a former government attorney, spent 30 years in the intelligence community. He's a government attorney. He's an attorney, and he's looking at make sure we can do what we want to do with it.
Just
now, as far as
leak the file to me. You can just, okay. I'll give you an address, and then I know that's fine. You better have digitized it by now, and I'll leak it. I'll go public. Let the UFO community figure it out. They're the smartest. I'm not kidding.
I'm not in charge of the other people are, but let me tell you about Art Bell. Art Bell's name was on it on two different time periods, and we couldn't figure it out at first, but then we figured out from a colleague of Art's. Art said, and he told us that what actually happened, that they were trying to create a radio station out at Groom Lake for the base radio station. A lot of bases have their own radio stations, low wattage,
They do.
5,000.
Yep.
And so that's why Art's name's on there. He was hired. It showed he was with non-clearance. He didn't have a security clearance, but he was escorted at all times out there, and that's what his job was, to make plans, create a radio station, get some kind of procedure going to get an FCC license and so forth to get a radio station. So that's what Art Bell's job was.
Kind of like, so Bob Lazar's name was on the list too, right?
Yeah, he was on the list.
Janitorial. Was it janitorial?
No.
Wasn't it janitorial?
He didn't have a security clearance.
Of course not.
When he first got there.
Right.
But he got a security clearance later.
No.
Yeah, he did. From April to, I don't remember, I don't have it here, but there was a period that he had to be escorted at all times. And then after that, he had a security clearance. It wasn't a high security clearance, but he had one. And one of the biggest mistakes this guy makes is that he's claiming he works at S4. Well, S4 is underground. S2 is a complex. S4 is under S2. He says S4, which doesn't. The people that work out there, and the people that have worked with me that's been out there, are saying anybody that ever works out there and worked out there doesn't say that they work at S4. They work at S2. And Lazar says, "Oh, I work at S4." No, you work at S2. S4 is under S2. But what reason he has, I don't know. But his name's on there. David Adair's name's on there.
No, Adair's name.
David is on there.
Now you're just making stuff up, Rick. Now you're just making
No. I'm not making it up, Jimmy. I'll show you when I can get this clarity gift you. I'll show you that. His name is on there.
I'll drive to New Mexico right now.
Remember, this is 1979 to 1990. This is a 10-year period. That's why it's so thick.
Where's the list?
And the list is in a safe place in McLean, Virginia.
Okay.
The guy, one of our guys.
I'll pay for the plane tickets. You and I, let's fly to Virginia. Let's do it this weekend.
This weekend.
I just want to see it.
I
want to see. Oh, that's right. I've got a 4th of July party on Saturday. Oh, you got out of it.
Yeah, we do too.
You got lucky. You got lucky. I was flying to Virginia. I just want to put my eyes on it. I just want to be able to say that I've seen it.
Where we're going to work, the way we're working it out. Again, I'm not in charge, but what we want to do is take some pictures.
Why don't we do it on my TV show on Gaia? We're taping.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Why don't we do it? Why don't we do an episode on Gaia? We can redact everything else. We can show Bob's name. We could show Art Bell's name and David Adair's name and make a show of it.
I already had an idea with Sid, my producer, to do just that. But if we want to do it on your show rather than
wait,
cosmic disclosure.
Sid's my producer. Do we have to?
producer.
Do we have to have this discussion once again? I've known Sid longer than you've known Sid. No, you haven't. I've known Sid longer than. No, you have not. Why don't we do a show on it? Why don't we do the big reveal?
Yeah. That's that. I've already.
Would you do that? Look,
if I can get, like I said, I'm not in charge of it. There's people in front of more senior than me within my group that's controlling this because they have their plan for disclosing that thing.
Yeah, but they whoever it is, they know who I am, and my word is gold. And if we redact, the point is those 3 names. I could care less about Bob Smith from Wichita, who was an engineer at Groom Lake. That's not of the concern. But those three names are a big deal. So what and we'll redact everything else and we'll do a show of it. And I promise.
Sounds great.
I
promise.
I promise complete. I'm not into doxing anybody. We're not going to do that. But if we could show that, we'll do it. All right. I've got a juice card at Gaia. I'm willing to play. All right. I've only got one though. So once I play the card. but I'll use it.
Oh, you're well liked at Gaia. I can guarantee you're well liked up there.
Better be. Guy is great. Okay. Well, yeah. All right. Back to we're gonna do this. Okay. I'll make the phone calls tomorrow. Okay. There's another part to Gillibrand where she announced full funding for the Aero office. And in the Senate Armed Service Committee's markup of, FY24, the National Defense Authorization Act. And she's also pushing a measure in this year's must-pass national defense in response to Grush's claim the federal government is hiding special access programs from Congress. Her proposal would bar funding for any government program that isn't directly funded by Congress. This is a really big deal. Do you think that'll pass?
No, I won't. No, it won't pass. There's too many toes to be stepped on if that happened, and they're not going to get approval from deep within the intelligence community, and especially the contractors community, because believe it or not, the contractors have a lot of pull. And
well, isn't this what Eisenhower warned us about?
Yeah,
I mean, this exact scenario. I mean, not even like a little bit close. This is exactly what he said. And
exactly,
we can't allow the American people and this country to be run by military contractors. We can't let that. And we were he said they were dangerously close. This was right after. This was his exit speech, right? His last speech,
1959.
Yeah, as he left the White House, and Kennedy came in. So the Kennedy won the election. But this is exactly what he warned us about, and that we cannot give up this control. Well, the control ended up happening, and the those that cut the checks in Washington, and they cry about budgeting and stuffing different bills with their little projects for their districts, and I get that. I understand that. You make your deals and your promises to get elected, and you've got your community that you want to support. I get that part, but you can't cry about lack of funding when you are writing blank checks and they go poof, and you don't even know what they're being spent on, and there's no accountability. That's the part that disturbs me, and where I think Gillibrand is flying right over the target here.
Oh, absolutely. There's, I think, in this last fiscal year budget, defense allocation, there's $28 billion. We have people. There are other people. I know the Black Vault, Greenwald. He looks deeply into budgets. But there are people out there that really, really, really monitor every line item they can see in a budget. And there's people out there that found there's $26 billion that's unaccounted for. It's just there in one line, and it's not figured on the bottom. So there's $26 billion that's hidden from the American public, and that's wrong. We should know where that 20 now. If it's classified, we should. There's a particular line item that you can put it in, research and development, whatever, classified. Okay, but there's 26 billion doesn't add up. So where's that $26 billion? That's a lot of money, $26 billion. I mean, to the American people, that's a lot of money, not to the government. We want to know where that money went. And people within will say, well, it's going to go to black projects. It's going in black projects. It's paying off some other country to hide our black projects at Pine Gap or someplace in wherever we're hiding it. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's just ridiculous that. And, there was a book written sometime after the Vietnam War. It was in the 70s, early 70s. And I remember my dad had it, and my dad read the book, and he was really upset over it. Anyways, the book was about how contractors actually ran that Vietnam War. They wanted to prolong that war as long as they could so the government would buy their products, their bombs and their bullets and their airplanes and their other technologies.
Toilet paper, food, toothbrushes, boots, socks.
Just like Halliburton did with the war in Iraq. I mean, Dick Cheney should have been, well, I won't get into politics. But anyways, you know what I'm talking about. But and the waste of money is that's just incredible. This country, I know we have a lot of money, but not really. I mean, we're so far in debt, but we can hide $26 billion someplace and the American public will never find. That's just wrong.
Dick, thank you so much. I'll be in touch over the next couple of days, and you and the family and everybody else have a great 4th of July. Fantastic conversation tonight. We are in a very tangible, real moment here. Things are moving at a faster clip than it's out of control. All right, it's out of control. But I think you say probably not. I say no, not so fast. I think disclosure is right around the corner. I really do. I think it's happening. I do. I feel that way. I feel it in my gut. So
I think we'll get some disclosure, but we'll never get full disclosure. That's my belief.
And we'll agree to disagree. Good night and good luck, Rick Doty. And I'll give you a call tomorrow. Thank you so much, Rick.
Okay, Jimmy. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great show. Great conversation. Thank you so much. Rick Doty right there, and lots to unpack in tonight's show. I'll leave that to all of you, and we'll hit some follow-ups on all of this. But lots to unpack tonight. Lots to unpack. And what am I doing tomorrow night? Does anybody know? Tomorrow night is last night, Seth Shostak. Oh, tomorrow night? Oh, I think we have Chris Garitano. Is that tomorrow night? Man, I can't remember. Hold on for a second. Let me see if I might be able to do this in real time. Let's see. No, I can't. I can't pull it up. I don't have my stuff in front. Oh, yeah, I do. I've got it right here. Tomorrow night. Yeah, tomorrow night is Chris Garitano. Tomorrow night, he is back with us right here on Fade to Black. I knew that. Doty's got me all messed up. And that was a great conversation tonight. Thank you so much. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Listen, everybody, get your T-shirts. Get your Game Changer memberships. Help support the show. Did you enjoy the conversation tonight? Help support the show. The links are below. All right? T-shirts are back. The Game Changer memberships are back. All right. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or reused anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Chris Garitano, I want you to be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Hey there, it's your friend Stormy Warren here, and I want to invite you to my new home, the Big 615, exclusively on TuneIn. So what is the Big 615? Well, simply put, it's the official home of country music broadcasting live from Nashville to the world. Download the TuneIn app from the App Store. That's TuneIn. And by the way, yes, it's free. You can also ask your device to play the Big 615 on TuneIn. Get the latest on country music from your favorite artists to the hottest songs climbing up the charts. Oh, and it's commercial free. That means a whole lot more music and a whole lot more country. Hear it all on the Stormy Warren Show, weekdays from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central. Download the TuneIn app from the App Store. That's TuneIn. And by the way, yes, it's free. You can also ask your device to play the Big 615 on TuneIn. And I look forward to having you join me on the Big 615.
This is your country station.
The Big 615.
Hey, y'all, it's Garth. The Big 615. You're going to hear the newest that country music has to offer. At the same time, you're going to hear the newest that the country classics have to offer. I want to hear the new single from George Strait, and I want to hear it right beside the new single from Luke Combs. That's the thing we call the Big 615.
Download the free TuneIn app from the App Store. That's TuneIn. Or ask your device to play the Big 615 on TuneIn.